Salutations, respected viewers. This is George from Ireland, and this video is about the Windrush Generation immigration scandal and some of Labour's reaction to it. So, what happened? Go back to the beginning. From 1948 until 1971, if I got that right, a large number of people from Commonwealth countries, such as Jamaica, Barbados, India, Pakistan, Kenya, Uganda, and so on, moved to the United Kingdom, and people settled there, and some of these people are still in the UK. Many have become British citizens. They've got children and grandchildren in the United Kingdom. So they made a tremendous and valued contribution to British life, and they're an essential part of the British population now. Anyway, since the UK is leaving the European Union, the UK is trying to sort out its immigration situation, and the UK government said it's going to make the United Kingdom a hostile environment for illegal immigrants. The difficulty was that immigration policies changed considerably. In the early 70s, the British government changed its attitude, and people from the Commonwealth were no longer automatically allowed to move to the UK. Those already settled in the United Kingdom were given indefinite leave to remain. In plain English, that means the permanent right to stay in the UK. However, no document was issued to individuals to say that. So many people lived in the UK for decades. Some of them hadn't become British citizens, but wrongly assumed that they were British citizens. They knew no other country. Another point, people who are born in the United Kingdom are not automatically entitled to British citizenship. Seems like an anomaly. Even if their parents are legally resident, they might have the right, they might not. It's an immensely complex issue. There are several factors go into it. That's by the by. So in the past couple of years, the Home Office has tried to expel people who are in the United Kingdom illegally. A few people are in the UK illegally. But then some people who'd arrived as part of this Windrush generation prior to the early 70s hadn't proven their status, hadn't proven their right to stay. And the Home Office was investigating, thinking they might be illegal, and telling them they didn't have the right to work, they couldn't claim benefits, they didn't have the right to use the National Health Service, even if they'd worked in it, and things of that nature. So you can imagine it's very distressing, and some people envisage themselves being expelled to countries they haven't seen since their infancy. So, yeah, as you can imagine, people were deeply upset and were offended. They believed they were British. They were in all except the strictest legal definition. So naturally they'd have sympathy. I would like their cases to be reviewed and sorted out very quickly. What I would suggest is we do a presumption the other way. If it can be reasonably presumed that these people who arrived prior to 1971, I think that was a cut-off, have the right to stay, then they'll be given a document to that effect. If it were subsequently proven to the contrary, okay, they could be expelled. One thing that limits my sympathy is these people had about 47 years to sort it out, to claim citizenship. And you only need to be in the UK 5 years to get citizenship. So they wouldn't need any English language test. In most cases, they came from Anglophone countries. What else can I say? Now, getting citizenship is quite an expensive process, about £1,000. So the difficulty was the government said, we have to prove you were here continuously without any significant trips away. You could go to your country of birth on holiday or something, but you can't stay more than 6 months. That breaks the continuity of residency in the United Kingdom. But the government should have loads of records, tax receipts, national insurance payments, the NHS. If you're regularly visiting your doctor, that proves you were in the UK, as well as if you're working for the government. Private companies would have a record that you work for them. What else can I say? Rental agreements, especially if you're renting from the public sector, school attendance, university attendance, and so forth. Anyway, some people find it difficult to assemble the documentary evidence to prove their continuous presence in the United Kingdom. So anyway, I think the government should address it urgently and allow these people to stay. We certainly don't question the right of these people to stay. So there are two undesirable outcomes. First of all, to let people who are illegally in the United Kingdom remain. The other one would be to remove people who are in the UK legally. Now, the second would be worse. I don't want people who are lawfully in the United Kingdom to be kicked out. So if there's no perfect solution. If we have to err, we should err on the side of letting people remain who are not allowed. You know, Not in every case. There's some cut and dried cases. There's some borderline cases, in which case I would let them stay. Anyway, so what I also dislike is Labour's reaction to it. Dawn Butler has gone on the offensive. She's a Labour MP, and she said that Theresa May's racist. And she was asked, do you mean personally racist? Now, I don't know of anything Theresa May's ever done or said which is remotely racist. And indeed, I was at a meeting with her when she was there in 2000, when she was denouncing racism. There are only 5 people in the room, Conservative Party members. So I don't think she was playing to the gallery there or trying to impress the media. And Dawn Butler was questioned about this, and she said, yes, Theresa May is racist because she presides over an institutionally racist government, which I think is preposterous. Right? This policy is nothing to do with racism. People arrive from all sorts of Commonwealth countries. It would include like Australia or Canada, and some of these people were of exclusively white British descent. So which race or races is it targeting? It is targeting people who are in the United Kingdom illegally, who can be of any colour. So this is one thing that irritates me about some people in Labour, is they will deliberately conflate these issues with racism, and law and objectivity are to be thrown out, and they're to use this highly emotive term to try and morally blackmail people that you have to agree with me or I'm going to insult you in the foulest possible manner. And it appeals to a certain constituency, the permanently resentful, these wildly indignant people who always want to be furious about something and always want to accuse others of racism, and that's virtue signalling, as though it makes them more moral to be so judgmental and to be excoriating others, accusing them of this foulest crime of gross injustice by simply trying to uphold immigration law. Now, you could argue the immigration law should be different, but this is the law as it is. Were Labour's policies particularly different? Labour deported lots of people who were in the UK illegally. Can Miss Butler guarantee that a future Labour government would never deport anyone? I don't think she can. So that's that. And David Lammy has used similar language, saying, oh, it's far-right rhetoric, making it a hostile environment for illegal people. Now, Labour says there should be some restrictions on immigration, and that's particularly the feeling of many working-class voters in Labour constituencies. And therefore, that means that not everyone is allowed in, and some people who stay illegally have to be removed, and that's it. Otherwise, you don't have an immigration policy. What would the opposite be? A complete open door, no restrictions on any number of people coming any time. That would be the opposite. If you're going to have any limit on immigration, that means some people who stay when they don't have the right to have to be kicked out, and that's life. And people who come illegally or come legally but overstay tourist visas or whatever, they're not particularly bad people. They're not always immoral. Were I in their situation, I might do the same. But anyway, we have this law, this policy for good reasons, and it needs to be enforced. So I dislike the way Dawn Butler and others have trivialised the issue in a sense. And they've been the boy who cries wolf, because sometimes there really is racism, and I've seen foul racist comments on the internet. And if you accuse all and sundry for racism when they're not, of racism when they're not being racist, then that devalues the term, and people assume that it doesn't mean anything, that racism doesn't exist. And she's also using this bogus notion of institutional racism. Now, I've read the Macpherson report, and Lord Macpherson's the one who really popularised the expression in the United States. Sorry, in the UK. I know it was invented in the United States about 20 or 30 years prior to that. But anyway, I've read the Macpherson report, and I didn't see any racism in that at all. Anything racist the police had done. I mean, they bungled an investigation, but that doesn't prove it was racist. They hadn't mistreated anyone for their race. A lot of murders don't get sorted out. Stephen Lawrence's case was one of those. So that doesn't prove that there was racism. Some people are absolutely determined to find that lots of people are racist, and that they are victims and others are wicked. Now, I realise this topic is particularly emotive for Miss Butler and Mr. Lambie, because they point out they're both the children of people who moved from the West Indies to the United Kingdom, and perhaps friends or relatives of those might have suffered from this fear of being deported, when really they ought to be allowed to remain in the United Kingdom. So that's that. Surely the situation is to try and tranquilly sort it out. I wish Theresa May would meet with Labour behind closed doors and try to thrash out a bipartisan approach to resolve this in a satisfactory manner, because I don't want people from the Windrush Generation to be expelled. and really it's nothing to do with race.